This is K-Pop Sunday, brought to you by your K-Pop Sundays before you have to go back to work on Monday. We are your hosts, OldR,
Serin,
Min,
and JR.
Hi, and welcome back to this week's episode of our podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about a few K-pop songs that we like that have samples and replay samples in them. If you're unfamiliar with music production, kinda like us, you might be wondering, what are samples? We think Ben Chalice put it best in his 2009 article, The Song Remains the Same, a review of legalities of music sampling, when he wrote, quote, "Sampling can be defined as incorporating pre-existing recordings into a new recording, whether part or all of a tune, a melody, and or the lyrics," unquote. Meaning, it is when you take some audio that you like and put it into your new work. But what if you aren't using a song's existing audio? What if it's a new recording of a Mozart piece, or you're only using the melody with a different instrumental? Well, according to copyright.gov, then it's a replay sample, also known as interpolation. As many great songs have samples and replay samples, we want to discuss our favorites. So, JR, why don't you start us off by talking about your first song and what it sampled?
It's been quite a while since I talked about FT Island, so when we decided on the topic of songs with samples, it only made sense for me to highlight their 2009 song, Missing You. This track is off their mini album, Jump Up, which, interestingly, was their first ever EP after only having released 2 full albums in the 2 years before, which is not usual, in my opinion. Jump Up is probably best known for its catchy, emotional, and hard-hitting title track, Bad Woman, so you'll be happy to hear that this B-side, Missing You, has a very similar vibe. The sample in this song implements a portion of Vivaldi's Four Seasons, specifically Winter. From my understanding of the concertos, each season is split into 3 tempo sections, though they differ per season, and the portion of the 9-minute-long Winter concerto that is used here is called Allegro non molto, which essentially means it has a quick tempo, but not too quick. The strings, which are the most recognizable aspect, are really punchy and add to the driving force of Missing You. While trying to find out if the members had ever talked about the sample in this song specifically, I found a Korea Herald article talking about how the album it came off of was sweeping Taiwanese music charts 4 years after its release, which is crazy to me. It just feels really random. But yeah, that was just a little side tangent. The song itself is about missing your first love and hoping that they will come back to you one day. You know, your usual stuff. The official music video doesn't seem like it's official, even though it appears on both their personal YouTube channel and 1theK's, because I discovered it's actually edited clips of a 2006 Chinese movie called Isabella. I'm glad I looked up a synopsis, because the video, in my opinion, is kind of misleading. It's actually about a father who discovers he has a daughter, but the video kind of made it look like the two of them were together. It's very odd, and I wish I could find some info on it and why this was chosen, but Naver was so bare when it came to this album. A lot of the articles that were still, visible actually had been taken down, and they just didn't exist anymore, so I couldn't find a lot of information. But yeah, this album is interesting because their previous full-length album didn't do great, and FT Island actually had a member named Wonbin that left the group just before this mini-album's release. And it seems like a lot was riding on them, and in the end, it obviously paid off, because who doesn't know Bad Woman? That's one of the most well-known K-pop songs, I feel like. Although in this day and age, maybe not so much anymore. I feel like...
Well, they have so many hit songs, but I don't think Bad Woman is among their most famous songs, but it's definitely one of their signatures.
Yeah, for sure. I'd agree. But like I was saying, I feel like it paid off in the end, because that kind of got their name on the map a little bit. Anyway, anyone else have any comments?
I just want to say that I'm a big fan of their early work, and this is one of the songs that just, if I want to tell people, here's why I like FT Island, this is one of the songs I'll point out.
It's a good one. Anyway, with my first pick out of the way, Serin, please tell us your first pick.
Thank you very much. Well, I selected my first song choice as I was listening to Ironically enough, a non-K-pop song I absolutely adored when I was little. So, are any of you guys familiar with Rise and Fall by Craig David?
No.
Nope.
I don't think so.
I know his later stuff.
Oh, okay. So, Craig David was one of the hottest R&B/UK garage singers back in the 2000s. For your information, it's UK garage, not garage, because garage is how they pronounce the word in British English. Craig's first 2 albums received significant airplay when I lived in the States, and presumably in Korea as well. And his songs are super popular in Korea as well. So, Rise and Fall sampled one of Sting's biggest hits, Shape of My Heart, and you guys are probably familiar with that song because it was featured in the classic movie Leon. Sting himself was credited as a featured artist as well, and other songs that sampled or interpolated Shape of My Heart also include Shape by the Sugar Babes, The Message by Nas, How to Avoid the Sun by Rain, classic, Leon by Park Myung-soo and IU from the 무한도전 Infinite Challenge TV show, and Love Theme 2 by Moon Hee-jun, and also Sunset Boulevard by Max Fly. Anyway, this Sting sample reminded me of the first song I chose for this episode, which is C'est la vie by Five. Five, spelled F-IV, not the word five, was a male R&B/a cappella quartet that debuted in 2002 and was best known for their debut song, Girl, and their follow-up song, Ring. Five happens to be one of my most favorite boy groups from this era, and I own all of their CDs. Literally all of their CDs. Five's debut album underwent a huge tracklist change before it got officially released. Long story, but C'est la vie was one of the 4 songs that got added later. So they had like a promotional CD that was released. Well, not exactly released, that was made in 2001. And then there was the version that got officially released, and C'est la vie wasn't included in the promotional one. So how do I know? Because, of course, I have all the rare copies, and it's not on the promotional CD. C'est la vie was written by Min Ji-young and produced and composed by Cypher Music. The lyrics are basically a self-reflection about one's life and dreams. Where am I headed to? Is this the right path I should go? Am I going the route I actually wanted to take? Or am I looking back at the road not taken and regretting my choices, etc., etc.? The line that hit me the hardest was, I'll just read it in Korean. 내가 지친 이유를 이제 알겠어. 꿈이 없는 건 죽어가는 것. Which roughly translates to, now I know the reason I'm exhausted. Having no dreams means you're dying away. And the guitar sample of Shape of My Heart fits the theme and melody of the song perfectly. It's nostalgic, but it's not too gloomy or too overwhelming. It rounds up the melody and lyrics perfectly. On a different note, if you're feeling burnt out and are in need of some form of motivation, I highly recommend you to listen to the song and read the lyrics. It might not apply to everyone, but personally, this song made me think twice about my choices in life and what I really want to do or achieve in the future. Now, it's your turn, Min. What is your first pick of the day?
So my song is a song that I have talked about before, but I like it, so I'll talk about it again. And that is IVE's After Like from 2022. When we chose the theme samples, this song was the first one to come to mind. I remember when the first teaser for this track came out, and I was extremely excited. And also a little nervous, because if they messed it up, it would be pretty bad. Because the teaser for this track is basically just the riff from Gloria Gaynor's 1979 hit, I Will Survive, one of the most iconic disco tracks of all time. And yes, I Will Survive has been covered and sampled by a multitude of different artists and in many different genres and whatnot. But it is such a recognizable track that you would like to be remembered as one of the good samples or one of the good songs to use any part of the song, instead of being remembered as one of the less good covers and samples. Because, you know, there's a lot of different things out there. But Afterlike was fully released and it was a commercial success, so it's good. I personally wish they would have gone just a teeny little bit harder into the disco, and been a little bit more quirky, but you know, it's still very good. And also the music video for this song very briefly references Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend from the 1953 movie Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, which is very iconic. Though I wish they would have added more movie references to the music video instead of just the one. But I could also not be knowing enough movies, so that it could be a me issue of being too dumb to recognize it. But I did give it an attempt to find other references in the music video to other films, but I couldn't find any. But you know, that Marilyn Monroe scene is iconic, so it's fine. I love it. It's a good song.
I just want to add fun fact about I Will Survive. There is a Korean singer that actually released a remake / cover of this song.
That's so fun.
Yeah, her name is Jinju, and she debuted under JYP's. So JYP basically produced and managed her. The story is that he wanted to mold her into a dance singer, a bit like I-YAH. But the thing is, she had 2 left feet. She couldn't dance at all, but she had an amazing voice. So he just decided to change the artistic direction, and he basically changed out the instrumental a little bit, more fast-paced, more danceable, and he recruited backup singers from America who could add that more exotic flair into the vocals and so on. So her version is called I'm Okay or I'm Fine, because the title is 난 괜찮아. It was a commercial hit, and the melody and everything is the same, but the lyrical content focuses on how the protagonist is doing so fine, even after she's broken up.
I gotta listen to that. That sounds good.
You should. It's from the 90s, but the melody remains the same, so people would probably be like when they hear it, they say, oh, it's just another ripoff of I Will Survive, lame. But when you actually listen to it, it's faster, it's got a different vibe to it because it's less disco-ish. And then Jinju just slams right into those high notes, and that tiny whistle register at the end is incredible in a different way.
I'll definitely look that up.
Yeah.
OldR, what about you? What's your song?
My first pick is LeeSSang Blues from 2003. It's a B-side on LeeSSang's second album, and it's one of the duo's most well-known songs. The lyrics are about someone unlucky in love finally finding the one who fills their life with joy. It's a slow hip-hop track that includes guest vocalist dong-geun. The riff is an interpolation of Albert W. Kettleby's 1920 song In a Persian Market. You might have heard this song before, but don't know it. If you've ever heard music that was supposed to be a stereotype for a country, like if you went to Epcot at Disney World and you heard some music at the Japanese area, you have an idea, stereotype, think stereotypes, then you know what this man does. In a Persian Market is typically performed with an orchestra, but it's not for the LeeSSang song, which is why if you've heard this song, you might not have recognized it because they took out the violins and then they put guitar instead. The melody of the original, however, was used to great effect as it makes the sorrowful sound of LeeSSang Blues. This all comes together in the music video for it. Gary and Gil play 2 lumberjacks. Gil has a crush on a girl who doesn't know he exists. She's close with his boss, and might be his daughter, and she works at a small boutique. She has her heart set on a dress on sale at her workplace, but can't afford it. He sees that and saves up money, and in the end goes to her job, grabs the dress off the hanger, and gives her a metal box full of his savings to pay for it, and then leaves without a word. Even though she doesn't know him at all, he wants her to be happy. It's a story of sad circumstances, and the melody sells this well. This was one of the first Korean music videos I saw, and I totally forgot about it until I was looking up a different song and I found it. I get why this was a hit, and looking back at the music video, I'm impressed that Gary and Gil were using saws in this because that's pretty dangerous for 2 dudes who I assume aren't too familiar with logging. Yeah, you see one of them with a chainsaw at one point, and it looks like he's cutting through the wood, not just, kind of staged. They also use very large, machinery. That must have been a whole thing.
Well, I was actually surprised by your song choice here because even I'm not that familiar with this song.
It's so good. I totally forgot about it. I was like, I know this music video. I was trying to look up a Lee Soo-young song because I'm so sure it wasn't original, and then this came up instead. I was like, why do I know this? This screenshot looks familiar. And then I played it. I was like, oh, I forgot about you.
Another thing we've overlooked how sampling is so prevalent in hip-hop, and Korean hip-hop is not an exception. If you look up like hip-hop songs from like the 90s and early 2000s, you'll find like multiple samples on one song, and there could be samples that you might not even recognize as an original song, like a completely different original song. You could be listening to a song by Nas, like stuff like Nas is Like, or even Mathematics by Mos Def, and if you look up the sample list, you'll be really amazed by how those producers extract all these samples from all these random songs out there and put that into a completely new track.
So, moving on, GR, what's your next pick?
My second pick is ZEROBASEONE's 2023 debut single, In Bloom, which features the main riff from Norwegian pop band I-YAH's 1985 single, Take On Me.
A classic.
Yes, it is. ZEROBASEONE was formed through a survival show, and shortly after its end, they debuted with the EP entitled Youth in the Shade. Quick side note, I found out yesterday that their fandom name is Z Roses, and I think that's so cute. I don't know why. I just think it's really cute. In Bloom is super upbeat and poppy, using a lot of synth sounds, which is fitting, given their sample choice coming from an 80s synth pop band. One thing in particular about this sample is that its integration is so smooth that if you're not listening to it actively, you might not quite catch it on the first listen. Obviously, if you don't know the song, you won't catch it at all. But that's besides the point. But at the same time, you wouldn't think that something was off, or you're like, that doesn't sound like it fits there. That type of thing. That's what I mean. Unlike my choice of Vivaldi's Winter and FT Island's Missing You, which literally sounds like they took a chunk out of a recorded track, ZEROBASEONE takes the I-YAH riff and switches it up a bit in both instrumentation and tempo, making it a replay sample or interpolation like we mentioned at the top of the show. According to their respective Wikipedia pages, both sourced back to other articles, but Take On Me is at 169 beats per minute, while In Bloom is at 82 beats per minute, so quite a difference there. Now, I want to talk a bit about I-YAH. As I said, they're a Norwegian synth pop band, and something interesting that I found is that the version of Take On Me that we all know and love is not actually the original, which I have linked to the original song and video, but a remake of sorts that has a bit of a duller sound in my opinion. The main riff has a lot less oomph to it, and I think it's understandable why that version didn't do as well as the most popular version that we know today. I wish that ZEROBASEONE leaned in a bit more and paid homage to the lead singer's quote-unquote spiraling vocals, as I've heard it called. However, I don't want to shade anyone, but we all know that vocals in this generation are a bit on the weaker side. I'm not sure if any of the members could have handled something like that.
Even the main vocalist idols like belt out their high notes. Their style is very different. So it doesn't feel as powerful as compared to what we are used to.
So I wish they kind of did a little bit more with the vocals and played up on that a little bit. Or even if you've seen Take On Me's music video, it has a really cool pencil animation thing to it that they like integrate both, real life and the pencil animation, and it's really cool. But at the end of the day, it really wasn't for I-YAH or their fans, but more so they just thought like, hey, this is a really cool riff, and they just used the riff. So that's understandable. However, I think there was a lot more they could have done with it. So In Bloom is about the group taking their first step forward together, regardless of the fact that eventually their time together will end. I really like that the meaning of the song kind of parallels the lifespan of a flower, how a flower struggles to emerge, it's beautiful once bloomed, but it will inevitably fade away. I feel like given the song's temperament, you don't really think about that because it is so upbeat, but it is kind of bittersweet in a sense as well. The music video is really cute, showing the members growing flowers in order to complete a video game-esque mission, and there's a handful of brightly colored sets, as well as shots of the members individually, and shots of them doing choreography together. I also wanted to mention that this song got them their first ever win, which for high-profile groups that have just debuted, that's pretty run-of-the-mill nowadays, I feel like. But the mini-album actually broke a record for being the first debut album to sell over 2 million copies, which is crazy to me. That's just a lot of albums.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, this is a really cute and bubbly song that utilizes its sample in a really impressive way, in my opinion, and I highly recommend it. Anything on this song in particular?
It's good.
Jer, I totally agree with you with what you said about how I wish that they had played it up more with the sample. I just think that that would have made it way more memorable in a way. Because, like, obviously, like, this is going to mean something to the members, but I think, especially with the theming and the lyrics, which I love, I think that playing that up more would have made it even more special. It's not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but I feel like it had more potential. Be more.
Yes, completely agree.
They should have went all out. Because I feel like if they'd gone all out, didn't hold back, I feel like it would have been better.
Yeah. Does our resident Norwegian have any additional comments?
I-YAH should have had more hits. Just That's all. They made good music. It's good.
Yeah. I thought they were British when I was growing up. Like,
yeah.
They don't really have, like, too strong of an accent. There's just certain words that have, like, a little variation to them. So I just assumed they were, like, British. So
they don't talk like men.
Fair.
Before throwing it back to Serin, I want to really quickly throw out an honorable mention that I came across because it really stood out to me, and also because it's super adorable. And that's NMIXX's Young Dumb Stupid, which uses the melody from the song Brother Jack, or Brother John, as I've heard it called in the States, or Frère Jacques, which is the original French name. It's just super fun and cute and quirky, and I almost went with it, but switched it out in the end for a little Take on Me by I-YAH. So that is another one to keep in mind. Now I'll send it over to Serin for her final pick.
The second song with the sample I chose is 골목길, or Alleyway, by Yang Dong-geun. So to give a brief introduction of Yang Dong-geun, aka YDG, he started off as a child actor, and then he kind of transitioned into a music career as a rapper as well. So he still acts from time to time, and as some of you may know, he will be on a few major projects in the coming future. In my opinion, Yang Dong-geun is one of the coolest celebrities out there, like the coolest stardom stories ever. Some of you guys, like me, might be more familiar with him as YDG the rapper. But the original Hallyu fans might remember him on his acting projects, or even the sitcom New Nonstop, where his character had this romantic thingy going on with Changnara. Their nicknames on that show was Kuribori couple, and some middle-aged Koreans will still remember him as an actor. Alleyway is the title track of The Man on the Block, which was released in 2002, and was also included as the original soundtrack of the movie Better My Disco, where Yang Dong-geun himself played the role of Seong-gi. Yang Dong-geun shared the background information of the song in a few different interviews. While this is not a proper remake or a cover, both the instrumentals and lyrical content were sampled from Lee Jae-min's song of the same title, so I guess it counts as an interpolation. Lee Jae-min was a DJ turned singer who debuted in 1985 with this song, which was based on a true story about his first love. He also said that he never got married because he never got over her. That's kind of, I don't know what to say, but it's kind of intriguing. Because he's like, yeah, because he is an old man now, and he's still in love with his first love. Anyway, what makes Alleyway so unique and historically important is that it's the first Korean song to incorporate breakdancing and Eurodance, such as the new wave sounds and drum machines, which were popular in the 1980s. The song, as well as YDG's remake, talk about waiting for one's crush in a cold, empty alley late at night. The only difference is in that Yang Dong-geun's remake, some wordplay and random phrases are added into the second verse. Well, the remake is lyrically a little bit different because, Yang Dong-geun wrote his own rap onto it, but the lyrical theme is the same. So, Yang Dong-geun said that he watched Lee Jae-min's performance when he was little, and it left such a huge impression that he decided to remake it one day. He later met Lee Jae-min in person to receive permission, and even hadn't watched his comeback rehearsal. But they did not meet again until 2018, when Yang Dong-geun was summoned on Sugarman 2, singing his version of Alleyway. On the show, the sample was mentioned, and then they happened to mention the original song by Lee. But then Jaemin appeared as a surprise guest, singing his original song in return. And since Alleyway was set to be covered / remade by another artist on this episode, in this case Block B Bastars, it was a rare moment where 3 artists would reunite and sing their interpretations of one song. And all 3 versions are amazing in their own ways. On a side note, the instrumental of Alleyway also got sampled by a female rapper named Remy on her own rap song, mixtape song, Hong Kong Restaurant, which in turn became remixed when she formed the rap duo Rimi와 감자 / Remy and Kamja. And so Lee Jaemin's original song became a classic not only for Yang Dong-geun, but also the future generation. Any questions or comments?
I just think that whole story is really sweet.
It is.
I've heard the song before, but not the whole story and how everything connected together. It's just so sweet.
Yeah, I was one of the people that knew him as an actor primarily.
Yeah.
I think the first time I saw him rapping was I believe he was in a feature for CN Blue's Yonghwa. He had a solo song with him or something like that. And it's he's a good actor and he raps? Like, I love that type of thing. Very, very versatile. He's a very versatile celebrity.
Well, Yang Dong-geun did say that the reason he turned to rapping was that although he was a child actor and he was on a few different prominent dramas, movies, and so on, but back then, the working conditions for child actors weren't as legally protected as they are now. And he felt so burned out from the long filming hours and the mistreatment from some of the meaner producers. And then he would just read a lot, and he got into rap music, hip-hop music, and he got interested, and then he started writing his own verses. And then it just culminated into a proper rapping career. So, yeah, it did shock a lot of people because you will find a few of his performances from back in 2001. And if you see his stage presence and the lyrical content stuff, it's very different from his image as an actor. Especially from before he got married and had kids, actually. A lot of his songs were explicit, not safe for kids stuff. And people didn't really expect that from an actor, I guess. But he basically straightened up a lot after he got married and had 3 kids. Yeah, and even on Sugarman, because, there's one section of the audience that are still in their teenage years, and then, he asked those students, do you guys know me? And they all say yes. And then one of the boys was like, oh, I know you from Show Me the Money. And then he was like, oh my gosh, do you listen to my songs? And they were like, yes, we do. And he's like, that's gonna be a problem. And then you just ask him why, and because he's a bit strong. In other words, explicit. So he's gotten a lot. He has definitely gotten a lot more self-conscious after he's grown up, basically. What I do find interesting is how a person can evolve over the years and throughout their career.
Yes.
Summary: Yang Dong-geun is amazing, and his song, as well as the original song he sampled, are a huge legacy in K-pop. Okay, moving on. Min, please share us your second song choice of the day.
So for my last pick, I wanted to focus more on an artist instead of a single song. Because in the world of music production, of which I am an outsider looking in, so excuse my simplicity in some explanations here, an artist might not make every single component of a song by themselves. It's more likely that they pick bits and pieces and arrange them together to make something new. So there are artists out there who makes sound packs that they release either for free or for sale, most likely, that other creators can then license and use in their own works. These sounds can be anything from guitar riffs to whistles to just about any sound that a music producer can make a beat out of. It's kind of like how you can license sound effects, or if you're into video editing, stock footage, templates, all of that kind of stuff that you could possibly maybe make yourself, but life is a lot easier when you can license it off somebody else. I don't think I should add about the one sound that I hate, but from this is how you get instances where one sound weasels its way into every popular track at the same time, like that godforsaken bed squeaking sound.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
I loathe that sound, and still...
Wait, which sound are you talking about? I mean, I know I'm not sorry, but I don't know.
It sounds like a bed squeaking.
Yeah, because it is a bed squeaking, that's what the sample is.
I'll have to
Yeah.
I have to listen to that
Yes.
song again and see what sample you're talking about.
Have you
Yeah,
heard EXO's Tempo?
in the 3 examples that I have listed, if you click on the link, it should take you to exactly where the sample starts in the songs.
Oh, okay.
Because
Okay,
in
I'll check them
some,
later.
it's
Oh,
very
nice.
noticeable, in others, it isn't. But that one bed squeak was also in a lot of mainstream pop sounds. And It was awful. So the person that I wanted to talk about today is KSHMR, a Indian-American producer and musician who set up his own record label, Dharma Worldwide, in 2017. And on their website, KSHMR and the other Dharma artists release sound packs and tutorials and plugins and a lot of other music arrangement stuff. Like, if you're interested in music production, you should check out their website. KSHMR was one of the people that made the Cataracts. He produced them and made like a G6. Which is an incredible feat of musicry.
That song also revolves around the sample, so he is
Yeah.
indeed a sampling genius.
Yeah. So he also makes his own sound packs that he has been selling for quite a while, and I want to mention his sound pack, Sounds of KSHMR Volume 3, because that's the one that you've probably heard in a lot of K-pop songs, and in a lot of American pop songs, and pop generally. When that sample pack dropped, it was everywhere, and it's good. I'm not gonna list every song that I have listed up in the document. You can look at the document for some specific samples used in specific songs. But since it's a sound pack, the names of the individual tracks in that pack isn't very interesting. It is names like Vocal Melody 11, 102 G minor, vocal loops and guitar riffs and whatnot. It's not like specific songs like, I Will Survive. It is made for music production, but it all comes from the same dude, and that's what I find interesting here. So you can hear his samples in Lisa of Blackpink's songs, Money or La Lisa, and Quasas Maria, for instance. Luna has used them, aespa, ATEEZ, Chungha, the list goes on and on. And there was a time in the early 2020s where a lot of K-pop music was very Indian-inspired-ish. A lot of it seems to stem from the Sounds of KSHMR packs.
Not surprising,
seems.
because he is of Indian descent.
Yes. And also, I found out that KSHMR, as I said before, he makes his own music, but he has also featured on a song with Eric Nam in 2021, which is a song by Armin Malik's Echo with KSHMR and Eric Nam. I found that to be a wonderful collaboration that I didn't actually think would existed, but Eric Nam just shows up everywhere. He has a tendency to do that for some reason. He was even in Oslo, interviewed a seagull. I will not go into Eric Nam, but yeah. So yeah, he's a cool dude. But I just want to wrap this part up by saying that there's a lot of different ways to use samples in music production, and seeing how our favorite songs are built up is incredibly fascinating. I personally don't think I would be good at music production, but it is insanely fascinating to watch people who actually know what they're doing do the things to make a song. It's incredible. I follow a lot of TikTokers that are like, I did the first cut of, this song, and then it turned into another song. And related, but I saw somebody who did the demo for a song that turned out to be Taemin's Advice, and I was like, damn, That sounds nothing like how that song ended up being. That's really cool. Music production is fascinating. Comments, questions, emails?
When you mentioned the bed squeak, I instantly thought of EXO's Temple, and I remember people talking about the bed squeak.
It was awful.
It's so loud and so front in the song.
You can still hear variations of that specific bed squeak in some songs. Like, people have gotten better at, like, changing it up. But it still appears, and every time it appears, I'm like, please, find a new one. Add some texture by any other means, please. We have heard the bed squeak. It hasn't been spoken. Please stop. So yeah, OldR, please. What's your final song of the episode?
Well, if you've been listening to us for a while, this pick isn't going to be a surprise at all, as I want to briefly talk about H.O.T's I-YAH. During the original promotions for the song on either music shows or at concerts, they had a long instrumental introduction to show news footage of the tragedy that inspired the song. A few months prior to H.O.T's comeback in 1999, a summer camp for kindergarten-age kids burned down. 23 people died, including 19 children and 4 adults who tried to save them. Soon after the fire, it was discovered that the building was knowingly and intentionally built to be shoddy. I-YAH is the expression of fury and grief Korea felt over this tragedy. It was made by Yoo Young-jin and was an interpolation of 2 classical pieces. At the start of the song, you can hear the beginning of Mozart's Symphony No. 25, then during Kangta solo, you can hear the beginning of Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. Both of these tracks were included for dramatic effect. The best performance of this, in my opinion, because there's some fighting over this in amongst H.O.T fans, partially my fault, was during the 918 concert. Before I-YAH, a compilation of news reports was played. Then about halfway through, you hear Symphony No. 25 gradually come in. Then the footage ends and the stage lights up with the orchestra of the New Soul Pops and NDOP continuing to play with their conductor at the helm. Then guitarist Groovy K and the band Screamer joined to add a rock rendition of the symphony. This sets up the tone perfectly when H.O.T joined. The group does their thing, expressing their anger loudly and making threats until about halfway through. It's during Kangta's solo part that you hear Moonlight Sonata, and momentarily it reduces the rage anthem to a simmer before building it back up. H.O.T are huge nerds for rock and classical music, so Yoo Young-jin played that up effectively. It's these details in the music that perfectly preserve the anger and grief felt with this tragedy. Yeah, we're going to be going more into this during the H.O.T project, and I'm trying to keep my comments very limited because I have a lot of rage when it comes to the Sealand Training Center fire.
Yeah.
I think people should have gone to jail more. I think the dude who owned the land shouldn't have his land anymore. I think that should have been taken from him. Yeah, we will discuss that another time. There's a lot of rage with this. And also, just real quick note, I-YAH is stylized as I-YAH in English. Yeah. But if you look at the Hangul, it's I-YAH, which, if you know Korean, you know I means child.
So it's basically how you would summon or call a child, like, hey kiddo, or something like that.
Yeah, and also what's really hard is that the track before I-YAH, you hear H.O.T talking with kids and they're like, wow, you guys are so cute and they're having a good time. And then it phases them out to the news report of the tragedy. Then you get to I-YAH. So it is absolutely jarring, as it was meant to be.
Yeah, that part where Woo-hyuk just screams I-YAH in the song, it hurts a lot when you know like the double entendre.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I like about Woo-hyuk when he's in the song. And also he did the same thing with Warrior's Descendants, where his expression of anger and grief when he screams, you can feel that. It's not just, scream just to scream. No, Woo-hyuk, when he's getting into it, he's got emotion and you can feel that. Because those kids would have been around my age. That's the kind of scary thing. Maybe a couple years younger than me, but, you know, they would have been in their 30s by now if it weren't for this. And that's not even including what happened to the adults.
They're around my age. Woo-hyuk's usual rap delivery, like, is very distinct. You don't really get to hear that kind of tone or vocalization from other idol rappers. I think the only other rappers that rap in a similar manner is maybe Jimin of Blackbeat, who is also from SM.
I think maybe Hyunjin Young could do it too. Because Hyunjin Young he puts a lot of emotion into his stuff. But I am also very biased. I would have loved to heard just a Yoo Young-jin version. because that man can express emotions. Like if you heard his, I think it was in 2000, the album that I like to refer to it as the album for his wife that we should not be listening to. Yeah, this is probably one of my favorite. When people want to talk about H.O.T and they default to Candy, I'm like, you have missed the point of H.O.T. Like, I-YAH is if you want to explain H.O.T, you show them I-YAH, not Candy. Candy is nothing like the majority of their discography.
Well, no. You'll have to introduce both to explain how. If you like say it in a Gen Z kind of way, it would be like introducing both the red and velvet of Red Velvet, because I-YAH would be the velvet and Candy would be the red part.
No, no. I will fight you off after this recording. We're gonna go out to the parking lot. Okay, and Min JR, any comments on this song before we wrap up?
It's good.
I obviously know the song, but I did not know that there were samples in it. So that's really interesting to me. I can't believe I didn't clock Moonlight Sonata. That's shocking to me. I have to listen to it over again now that I know this and like really, really try to pick out.
I didn't catch it either, and it is my favorite piano piece. Like when I started playing piano, I wanted to learn Moonlight Sonata. Even I didn't catch it. It's like, this feels like something I should know, but for some reason, I never made the connection. Because with H.O.T songs, there's quite a few surprising classical pieces that are sampled in their stuff
And
that
Hope
you
as
wouldn't
well.
get. Hope is the obvious one. No, I'm talking about Hangbok. That one I didn't know, and then I re-listened to it, I'm like, oh, why didn't I catch that? I'm a fake fan. Again, I want to emphasize how much H.O.T are classical music nerds. They are so nerdy when it comes to classical music. Keep in mind that Kangta and Heejun especially love classical music, but then they are also big rock music fans. So this was just right up their alley. This was leading into them more and more putting pop and then dragging in classical and rock. So this was, starting to be more and more of the trend to, honestly, up until recent years, that they kept going on that trajectory because they're like, we like both, we will include both. I'll explain more of this when it comes to the H.O.T project, but
Yeah.
just wanting to put it out there, though, that I-YAH, though, when I think of what is an effective way to use a sample that's like in the spirit of it and really adds to the experience, I think that I-YAH is a good example of that.
To wrap up, over the years there have been many songs that were sampled and interpolated in K-pop. This list is just a few of our favorites, and some of them surprised us. But we barely scratched the surface of music sampling today. However, we hope we'll get the chance to do more episodes about this topic in the future. Well, JR, take it away.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, then please make sure to rate, subscribe, follow, and tell your friends about us. If you want to interact with us or just see more of our content, then you can follow the links in the description to our website, social media platforms, and our coffee. Also, don't forget that our next episode comes out on September 1st, 2024. Thanks everyone. Bye!
Bye!
또 만나요.
안녕.